What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Leveled Up Life podcast. Brandon Courtney, as always, here with Paul McLean,
My man.
helping you level up your life in all the areas that matter most: your faith, your family, fitness, finance, and your franchise. Do us a favor, wherever you're watching from, wherever you're listening from, leave a comment, leave a like, leave a subscribe. Man, it helps us out a whole lot. We're trying to help people. We're trying to reach people. We're trying to take our little bit of wisdom that we have, our life experience, and just help people the best way we know how, man. It's crazy. I get so many phone calls, man, every single week, just like people asking just like basic life questions, man. It's cool to see people are hungry, people are searching, people are ready and willing to step into like the next level them. They're just looking for a little bit of guidance, man. I think this podcast is definitely helping people. So,
dude, it helps me every single week, man. And I appreciate you locking arms as we do this together, man, because it's just different when you get to kind of flow with somebody. That's and I don't know of anybody better to flow with than you, bro. And so obviously the mission and purpose, guys, is to serve you, to value you, to love on you, and give you some value each and every week so you can go after your next level and go out at it with more clarity, confidence, and some specific disciplines to go out there and do that. And today, that's exactly what we're going to unpack and talk about. We're going to address some habits, some disciplines that will really take you to the next level. You know, we talked about this a little bit last week that, dude, there's so many things you can do in a morning routine. Like, dude, it's like endless, right? Your morning routine can become a nightly routine. And so, you know, this app that's been created, it's going to be launching come January 1st called a Leveled Up Life app. And the focus is to really kind of give you a one place app to go to, exactly, where you don't have to be opening up all these different apps, because how many people know, man, you hate having to close the app. So like it's one spot, you get in there. By the time you're done with that app, dude, you feel refreshed, revived, and you're really just primed and set up to go out there and attack your day. Because how many know that how you start your day oftentimes dictates and leads to how you end your day?
That's right.
And the one thing I want to kind of, I guess, start with and maybe talk a little bit about is like most people start their day and the day is kind of like they're chasing the day, right? The day is dictating what they do, how they think, and how they feel. And I know for me, one of the things that really kind of shifted my energy level, my focus, my gratitude, my attitude, my temperament, all those things throughout the day was before I'd wake up and I was like, man, I'm about to be ultra productive. Like, I'm going to crush the day. And so I wanted to grab every minute. And I'm very competitive. I'm like, dude, if I can get 3 more minutes on some other fool that might have hit snooze or something, or I can check my email first, like I got an edge, I got an advantage. And what I realized was, man, when I open up my eyes and then I roll over and I open up my phone and I check my emails first thing in the morning, dude, now I'm just responding. I'm like a firefighter, right? You're going out there and just trying to fight the fires of the day, opposed to sitting back and saying, no, I'm in control of my day. I'm going to go ahead and do the only thing I can control, which is focus on my attitude, right? And get my mind right, prime myself. And instead of spending that first 30 minutes just jumping through emails, the biggest thing that helped me, dude, was really kind of transitioning over and saying, okay, my first 30 minutes, an hour, I'm going to spend it with God. I'm going to spend it with visualizing what I want to be and who I want to be and going after that next level version. I'm going to spend that time speaking to myself, not listening to myself, right? And all of a sudden the things started to shift and change. And that's kind of the morning routine app is produced with that. You got the gratitude, the affirmations, the Bible, and also the last thing we'll unpack next week is really challenges and how to create some great peer-to-peer pressure to help you become accountable to these things that will help lead you down that path, right? Talk about that, dude. What were some of the things that you shifted in the morning that you used to have in the routine that you kind of substituted out? You changed maybe one discipline for another discipline, one negative discipline for a positive discipline. What was that for you?
I mean, so the first thing I do is I go, man, what's Paul McLean wearing today? And then I try to visualize that, and then look where we're at. You know,
if people say manifestation doesn't work, bro, this is.
I think we hang
evidence.
Out too much.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
If you're not watching online, we're almost matching. But the morning is everything, right? You wake up in the morning, and dude, I've been victim of reacting to the day probably more than I've been, on the other side of that. Like, just throughout life, man. It's like it's hard to break old habits, bad habits, and so I've waken up and just been a firefighter, like you said, for a long time. And what you find is that you can still be productive, but like you're not where you should be or where you could be. And so you're just responding. And then you have this feeling at the end of the day, like, man, I didn't reach my potential. I didn't get everything done. I didn't get everything out of this day that I could have. And so at some point you got to make a decision to change something. Because if you just complain about it forever and you change nothing, it's like actually worse than not doing anything at all. Right. And so I'm not ignorant to the fact that something has to change in the morning. And And I don't know how you are when you wake up, but dude, my body does not want to wake up sometimes.
No, yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's just me, but it's like I want to hit that snooze 97 times because I've been victim of, the New Year's resolutions. Like, this time I'm gonna go to the gym. This time I'm gonna do that. And so I think probably when I started taking morning routine real serious was probably like, I don't know, good, probably when I had kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because, like, dude, you got something else to live for. You got something else to fight for. It's not just about you anymore. And
Yeah.
so for me, man, it's like I got to get up and get after it. And so you said it, number one, I got to get my mind right. I think it starts there. And then once I get my mind right, like, my body will follow. My body's always tired in the morning. You get your coffee, you get up, you go to the gym, but, like, it starts in the mind. It starts with your mental. So for me, I got to get in my word, right? I get
Yeah.
some music on, I get the Bible going. So I read my Bible app of the day. That's why I'm excited about this app coming out, because for me, that's where it starts with reading. And I'm a pastor, so it's like I got to turn on and off my brain, as opposed to, like, am I reading the Bible to prepare for a sermon, or am I reading the Bible to be fed by
That's
the word?
good.
And so I got to be, and I think a lot of pastors have to fight, like, that temptation to just, like, study to give as opposed to study to receive. That makes
Yeah.
sense. And so for me, I got to spend a good 15, 20 minutes in the morning just, like, going through my word, reading the chapter of the day, journaling, writing down what I'm receiving, what I feel like the Lord is speaking to me. And in that process, it's renewing my mind. It's waking my body up physically, because I'm reminding myself of who I am,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not a tired, lazy dad, right? I'm a go-getter. I'm someone who tackles the day, someone who encourages others, someone who builds up. So I'm reminding myself who I am, and that way I can step into, the life that God's called me to live. And so I guess just making that mental switch in the morning is big for everyone, but without a plan,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the day has you. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
100%, dude.
So I don't know, Bob. I mean, we talked about it last week, gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Writing down, being grateful, starting there, getting in your word, and then for me now, it's like going to the gym. So those are my probably big three things that I do in the morning.
Yeah, that's good, dude. And I think so. For one, everybody, I believe, is more alike than not alike with this. Like, you could, before you go to bed, like, no, tomorrow morning I got to tackle some things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like you should be full of, like, passion and excitement for whatever you're going to tackle. Now, not every day is like that,
Right.
but I believe it's important at night to try to get the right perspective and spin whatever you're maybe looking at, like, man, I got to handle that, and kind of flip it where you get to handle that,
Yeah.
right? And so I think at night, the way to kind of help yourself and aid yourself and get out of bed is not like, I have to do this tomorrow, but man, I get to do this. And it's just a paradigm shift. So if you could just switch that from, man, what do I have to do? Because then it seems like a fight.
A
fight,
Yeah.
yeah, like a burden, you know what I mean? And change it to, I get to do this. Well, now it's like a privilege. Now it's like, okay, how where's the good in it, right? Like, where's the benefit? If I get to do something, there's some advantageous things about it that, are going to set me up. And so for me, man, the one thing, because I before I go to bed, dude, I would kind of be thinking, a lot of times it's hard to go to bed because you're ruminating on what needs to be done. And I think it was in the morning miracle book, they talked about, like, a nighttime affirmation, right? And in the nighttime affirmation, it kind of helps set you up to really go out there and be just locked in the morning, and not hit snooze, and not start casting votes for the opposite of what you're trying to do in the morning, right? Because it's hard when you're like, man, I'm a go-getter, I'm confident, I'm bold, I'm getting after it, I'm empowered, I'm equipped, I'm disciplined, I'm focused, all these things. And then the alarm clock goes off, man, and you hit snooze 7 times. By the time you get out of bed, dude, you got like 8 votes of why you're a loser. You know, you're like, man, I don't listen to what I say. I got no integrity. I can't depend on myself. And be clear, that's me, you, everybody, right? Like, we've all done that. And the person that's acting like they haven't, well, dude, you get on a podcast, tell us how you've never not done that. But the reality is, how do we best combat that, right? And I think at night, just kind of speaking some things to yourself and saying, like, hey, tomorrow I'm waking up at this time, and you say it, and, like, you could write it out. Like, I got a nighttime routine affirmation where I say, tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock or 5 o'clock, I'm waking up, and I know that this is going to make a massive difference in my life. I choose to not hit snooze, but I choose to get up amidst the feeling, because I'm a disciplined person. And if you just say, like, a quick paragraph before you go to bed, and you kind of really talk about the advantage of doing that, and the disadvantage of hitting snooze, and that could be like, even though I'll even say, like, if I'm getting less sleep, like, tonight I'm gonna have 5 hours of sleep. That's the exact amount of sleep I need to have to be productive tomorrow. Opposed to, like, oh man, tonight I ain't get my normal 6 hours.
Right.
I ain't get my normal 7 hours. Well, now how do you think your body's going to respond to that? Right? Your mind is dictating. It's a whole like mind over matter kind of thing. Yeah, matter does matter as well, but you want your mind to influence your matter the best possible way it could, right? And so I just think that's an important thing to do. And I want to read this quick story. You know, it kind of I think portrays what we're talking about, dude. And it's a story about these two people, and it's a true story. It's a study that they did. And in the morning they go and they give this person like a hot cup of coffee, right? So they give them a hot cup of coffee, and I just pulled it up to make sure I'm doing justice with it. And they said, hey, we'll give you $20, right? We need you to read these 3 paragraphs, and then we're going to come back and you need to answer this question. And so they come back, they read the 3 paragraphs. Mm-hmm. They asked the person the questions, and the person that had the hot cup of coffee, they described the character in the story. They described the scenes of the story as warm and caring, right? That was what they described it as. And then they came back and gave another group of people a cold cup of coffee. And they said, hey, we're going to come back and I want you to read these 3 paragraphs and answer these questions, right? You know, how did you describe the character? Da, 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 da. And it was complete opposite. It was like the character was uncaring. They were cold. They both read the same story, right? But it was how they perceived it based off just a cold cup of coffee or a hot cup of coffee. And the whole project or study is to basically portray the fact that, man, how you look at the rest of your day, right? If you're grateful, if you're excited, if you're building yourself up, if you've empowered yourself, if you've had some good visualization, man, the whole day you're going to find things. You're going to see things that you normally would call negative. You normally call bad. You normally call an obstacle, an adversity, a struggle, and that would cause stress, anxiety, and the things you don't want. Man, now you call that thing, you know, blessed, and you look for the good, and you're like, I'm glad that happened, and this was great. And you just see everything differently, dude. And the reality is we're the author of our lives. A lot of times people will experience the same thing, but their narrative, the response, and then ultimately the path that they take from there is so different that one leads a life of quiet desperation. The other one leads a life of crazy victory. Right. That sounds on these testimonies because of how they saw it.
Dude, that's good. Really good. I think about like a kid, right? So when we're kids, our mind is like a sponge. So we both have little kids. You speak anything over them, negative or positive, good or bad, funny or sad, like they're going to soak it up. And the truth is we've all grown up with brains like sponges, and we've begun to believe things that are not true about us, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lie told long enough eventually feels like the truth. Yep. And so the reality is when you get to become an adult and you've believed a lie for so long that you're lazy, that you're not worthy, that you just are who you are, you're just common like everyone else, you're never going to be, you know, like that person. You've believed this lie, and then so you live life as if the lie were true. And so really the positive affirmation, the gratitude journal, you're rewiring your brain to think the right way, right? Yeah. And it's a process. And so even though you aren't that yet, what a positive affirmation does is begin to slowly rewire your brain to be that thing, right? And so it's speaking what could be in the future as if it was right now, right? And so it's like, I'm not a $1 million CEO that runs a successful organization that blesses my city, but I speak and live like as if I am, and then my behavior follows that which I speak, right? Yeah. And so it's rewiring your brain. And so I think when it comes to affirmations, a lot of times what we do is we just say these mantras that sound real good, but I think for me, I gotta be super specific in the things that I say, right? Because you could just repeat, I'm successful all day long. But if you never define what success actually is, it's good. It's like, well, I'm just kind of saying pie in the sky kind of stuff, right? Yeah. And so for wherever you're at in life, like I think in the morning, that's why it's so important to get into the Word, because it's so specific on what God says about who you are, right? But not only like your identity in Christ, but specifically what you want to see and what you believe that God is calling you to do, become, accomplish. Like you got to get specific with it. And then I love what you said, not only specific, but there also has to be some emotion tied to it. Mm-hmm. So it's like that warm cup of coffee caused like a physical emotion to take place. And so for you, it could be like, I'm trying to think of an example where like, so when there's a negative emotion tied to like a rewiring of the brain, think about like if you were to get robbed, like at gunpoint, mm-hmm. like in your car. Like, dude, if someone came up to you and robbed you at gunpoint in your car, the next time you got in your car, your brain is rewired so quickly that you'd be scared to get back in your car, right? Because of a traumatic, emotional something that took place in your car. So like it instantly rewired your brain. So in the positive, like tying a positive emotion to like that the person you want to become is just as powerful.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'm a strong dad that loves to play with my kids, that has whatever, right? And so like if you're saying that, we'll tie a positive emotion to it. Like go work out and say that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like tie something physical to it. Drink that warm cup of coffee. Like tie something positive that's tied to you saying it. And I think it's more likely to rewire it quicker, as if the same way a traumatic negative experience could rewire your brain. Does that make sense?
100%, man. I think Tony Robbins even talks about that stuff. He says like, you know, and it sounds funny. I remember when I heard it, I was like, dude, does he really do that? And should I do it? But he talks about like standing like you know, like a Superman
100%.
pose, you know?
Or like do a push-up when you say it. Or pose when you say it.
Stand straight up, you know, like
you're tying the physical to now what you're saying out loud, and it's going to rewire your brain faster. It has to.
Dude, there's a good book that I think it's Mel, gosh, what's your last name? I forget the last name, but it's called the High Five Method. And it's very interesting, dude. It said that they did a study and looked at all the top NBA teams, and they'd go back through and all the different like videos and footages and count how many high fives the team gave.
Like
and
within the game?
Yeah, bizarre. They said that for like 15 years straight that they went back, the team that gave the most high fives was a team, and they went from the preseason, is the team that won the championship game.
Gotta be,
and what it is, it's just like it's just an encouragement. Like, dude, like no matter what, it's like we do that now. Like even our chant is like the girls all high five each other, and then they do the chant. Just because I'm trying to get some extra high fives in now, man. But what it is that physical 100%. Activity that triggers something in your brain, right? That says like, hey, there's something good to come, or even if that wasn't good, something good is going to come out of it. It's all encouragement, empowerment, right? And so, absolutely, man. I think that's a big deal.
Well, it's like we do the same thing at church. Like before we get ready for the word, it's like, hey, before you're seated, you know, high five people and tell them you look good, you sound good. It's the same thing. You're just like you're affirming them. There's physical connection.
Yeah.
Your brain's rewiring itself to like believe what's about to be said, what was just said. It's just, I mean, it's so crazy how it's psychological, and people think it's unintentional or it's just something funny, but we do it intentionally or unintentionally, like rewire our brains for the good or bad all day long, right? And so if you're aware that your brain is being rewired, you might as well be intentional how it's being rewired.
That's great.
100%.
Yeah, I think you said it right, dude. The first step is today, let this be the day that you're aware, right? I love what Craig Rochelle says, is you can't defeat what you can't define. Yep. So like today, we're defining the fact that, hey, you have the control, right? It's up to you to start to say, am I going to just listen to these voices, or I'm going to be speaking to myself, right? Because everybody's got the little voice in your head, and if that was you, you wouldn't be saying that. It's to me, it's the enemy. You call it the voice of mediocrity, whatever you want to call it, but it's against you, right? That voices that you're listening to, it's typically not empowering you. It's probably not. It's typically not like, hey, today you're gonna kill it. Right. No, you're just like, dude, you're tired, you're lazy. Why do you feel like this? Why do you feel like that? Why did you have that crazy thought, dude? What's wrong with you? Like it's that kind of stuff. It's a war in your mind. And this is where we're saying, hey, let's unpack a couple some good affirmations and go through what that looks like, so you can start speaking the 2.0 version, the next level version about yourself. Now, Brian, did you ever feel like when you started saying it, like, did you ever go through a season where you're like, all right, I heard about affirmations, you started doing it, and you kind of feel like that ain't true, that ain't working, and then you stop doing it?
Of course.
What is What for somebody that's done that, how do they get encouraged with it to understand that, you know, because there's a process. It's write it, think it, speak it until you believe it. I mean, you're not going to believe it right away.
Right.
What's that process look like? Why does it take? Why is there a process?
I think like anything else in life, it's about consistency, right? So if you know something is like I don't have to be sold on the fact that working out and eating good is good for me. Like I know that, but that doesn't mean I do it every day. Like everyone, I mean, 99.9% of people would agree that working out and eating right is good for you. But yet not everyone does it. Why? Right. Because it's hard to not just do it once, but to be consistent with it. And so the same is true for affirmations or, you know, any other thing that's worth doing in life. You got to be consistent. And I've fallen victim to inconsistency in many areas of life, this being one of them. And I think life just happens, right? And so I think about when I was doing jujitsu. Like I was like down to 170 pounds, like shredded, looking good, about to do my first tournament.
Yep.
Got one little scratch on my elbow. Went to the hospital over 3 days because I got an infection, and then I've never went back. It's been 2.5 years. And so, like, dude, consistency is the answer. It's not like I didn't know that was good for me or healthy for me. So with affirmations, man, sometimes one little thing in the morning could throw you off. Like, dude, one fight with your wife, one argument with the kids, one unsettled thing that happened at night that messed your morning routine up. And so I don't know like specifically what it was, like why I got off for a season or a day or a month or a week, but like life happens. But I think you said it earlier, just being aware of the fact that I need to get back to routine, because that's the thing that's ultimately going to take me to where I need to be. Just being aware of it and then having accountability, which is why I love the app, because on the app, it's like, dude, you haven't done your affirmations, gratitude journal by reading for 12 days. Where you at, bro?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think having accountability in your morning routine is big. So I think that's probably it for me, is like not having accountability in that is why I got off track. It's like not having anyone to check in and be like, where you at? Where you going? Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest thing that most people are lacking. And the accountability that you do have, if they're not ahead of you in some way, well, they're hoping you don't check in on them either.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so now you're just a group of, people who aren't reaching the next level.
Yeah.
And so I don't know specifically, but being aware is, I think, the biggest thing. And then just starting where you're at, like not beating yourself up over it, not falling into guilt and shame, but just like, hey, it is what it is. I acknowledge the fact. There's no excuses that it happened, but here I am today. Let's move forward.
Yeah. I think, dude, like how many times have we started to do something, and then, like you said, that one thing takes you off of it, and then one day becomes two becomes five becomes 10, and all of a sudden you look back, you're like, dude, how did that happen? And I think it's just like, like you said, accountability and just being reminded, you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to forget and get caught up doing the next thing, and then an old bad habit substitutes and replaces a really new good habit, right? And so I think, like, so the affirmations, we're going to have it set up through the app where it'll actually remind the person in the morning. You can set like, hey, 5 a.m. I want these affirmations I wrote today to come up on my phone tomorrow at 5 a.m. So when you get out of bed and you hit alarm off, those affirmations are there. And I think that's a trigger to say, hey, let me get into my morning routine. Yeah. Hey, let me open up the app. These are my affirmations. Let me start speaking this right away. So it's the first thing you do, and it's a productive thing to set yourself up and prime yourself. And it's no different than like if you're like having a hard time like working out in the morning or getting up and going for a walk. Well, if you wake up and your shoes are put out and your socks are put out and you got a glass of water right there, and you say, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is drink this glass of water, and then I'm going to put on my shoes, and then I'm going to go for a walk, you're significantly more likely to do it than you are if you just say, hey, tomorrow morning, I like to go on a walk. It just doesn't happen the same way. And so I think that's one thing that as I look back, I know how many times have I just had something good going on, and then I miss a day, and then all of a sudden it's done, right? And I think that's just too common. I think it's because of that.
100%. And I also think, and this just came to my mind when you were talking, is that people don't fully understand what the promised land requires, or like what the next level requires. They think that when they get to the next level or the promised land, that it's going to be easy. But it's actually, Egypt was easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like mediocrity is easy. Being a slave and being told what to do, that's the easy part.
Yeah.
But it's in the process where things don't taste the same anymore, like they did, like when the Israelites were coming out of Egypt, right? And God was providing for them, and God sent them manna. But what happened on the way to the promised land? Well, they started complaining, like, dude, the leeks and onions back in Egypt taste better than this.
Yep.
Like, dude, we were better off staying back there. Like, Moses, why'd you lead us out here just to die? Like, dude, we should have stayed in Egypt. And then when they got to the promised land, like, God quit sending manna because it was time for them to work.
Yeah.
So like the promised land requires work. The next level requires work. And so when you asked me that question, I was thinking like the reason people stop being consistent with good things is because you start thinking about Egypt. Like, dude, it was easier not to wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
It was easier not to say these affirmations. It was easier not to be, not to give sacrificially or whatever it is. And you forget, like, dude, the promised land, the next level of your life is actually harder and requires more accountability, more trust, more integrity, more giving, more all good things, right? And so I think people have a false expectation of what that next level is. Everyone says, I can't wait to get to the promised land. But in the promised land, you got to dig your own trenches. You got to water your own garden. You got to hire your own people. You got to train you got to do a lot more stuff as opposed to just being, a 9 to 5 back in Egypt. That makes sense. If you're not getting the Egypt reference, you probably need to get to church.
No, but 100%, bro. But I think too, what we'll do is like we'll glorify what was mortifying us 100%. In the present moment. Like we're like, dude, we have to get better. Like we got to get this weight up. We got to get our finances right. We got to do these things. And once we start stepping into those uncomfortable seasons, I think the enemy will distort the past and create great deception, thinking that was better than what it really was, right? So we start looking back and thinking like, oh, that was just so much easier to be able to roll out of bed, to not go the extra mile and write that note for my child, or spend that extra time that I don't really want to because I'm tired and I'm exhausted. It's easier to sit on the couch than go read a book to my kid. I mean, all those things, and it's a lie. Yep. It really is a lie. And what happens is because of that, we get tempted and pulled like maybe that is true. And then we start living in that way. And then it's a great cycle. Then we start doing those old bad things again. And we're like, dude, this is terrible. And then we keep doing them until it hurts so bad. And then we cry out to God, like, we got to do something different. Right. And then we start doing those things. We're like, man, that was so much better. Yeah. And it's like, we just got to just delete that lie. Right? Hold on to the truth, which is God is with me, He's for me, the best is yet to come, and just continue to move forward into these God levels that He's prepared for us. But man, it's so easy. And I always think about like the cycle of the Israelites, dude. Like, dude, I remember reading the Bible thinking like, these guys are fools. Like, I remember being, just going to the Old Testament thinking like, what is going on here? Right. Like, they fall down, they're separate from God, their life's in shambles, their identity's gone, their life doesn't look good. And then they cry out to God. And then God's there because He never leaves you or forsakes you. He picks them up, right? Gives them the straight path. They start walking in His promises. Everything's going good. And once it goes so good for so long, then they're like, well, you know what? I'm going to just start going back. And they take the foot off the gas. They compromise here, compromise there. Before you know it, they're worshiping a gold calf, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how did that happen that quick? And then all of a sudden, it goes bad. Life goes to shambles. God's not with them. There's disconnection. And then they reach out to God. God, can you help? It's that cycle, right? And I thought, like, I'm that idiot. Right. Like, that's me, right? Like, at first, I was kind of judging them. Like, these guys are foolish, man. Like, how do they do that? And I thought, like, man, that's everybody, dude. Like, that's our life today still. That's why the Bible's so applicable today, dude. It's just like, I started thinking, like, oh, that's what I do. Like, I get this habit going. Mm-hmm. And then it's so fruitful and everything's feeling so good.
God parts the Red Sea on your behalf. It's a miracle moment. Yeah. You walk through it, praise God, God's good, and then you forget all about what He's just done. Yeah. 2 chapters earlier in your life, and you're like, man, I don't know if God's ever going to come through again.
So easy to do, bro.
So easy. We all fall victim to it. But that's why this affirmations, reminders, identity, purpose, like you got to stay consistent with
it. You got to do it every single day.
Every day.
Hey, talk about real quick, man, like so when you look at and obviously we're not trying to preach at you, this is for everybody, but I think the Bible's got great examples of what is applicable, like we said today, but it seemed like a lot of times when God was getting ready to set somebody up into another level in their life, that there would be a name change, right? Like you look at Abram to Abraham, right? It was a Sarai to Sarah, like Simon to Peter, Jacob to Israel, like all these different names. Like God gave him a new name when He assigned and kind of brought about the purpose that He had put in them, right? And He was like, it's time to have this come to pass, right? Because Simon already was a Peter, right? Israel was already a Jacob. Like those identities were there. But for so long, a lot of times we'll live by the wrong identity. We'll live by the wrong name. And it's hard for us to outperform the label that we give ourselves. And so God steps in and He says, all right, this is what I'm calling you to. I'm calling you to these levels. And there's a name change. Yeah. Like what's the significance and importance of that? And was that just by chance, or do you think God was intentional with that?
I think words matter, right? Words are powerful. And so, like, if you think about how creation, like Andrew's son was just asking me the other day, like, how was everything formed? And Andrew defaulted to me. Like, how did God create all this? I'm like, dude, God's so powerful that He spoke and created all this stuff. So I think we see from the very beginning how powerful our words are, how powerful names are, right? And so if you look back in biblical days, most of the names were given not just because it was like a cool trendy name like we do with our kids, right? It's like Blaze, It's like, well, I'm sure there's some biblical significance in that, but I mostly picked it because it sounds cool, you know?
Well, did you wait? Not to interrupt you, but the third boy's brave. It's like
Yeah,
I think you
like,
finally do. You named him an affirmation, like
yeah,
dude. It's like every
100%.
time somebody calls his name, he's affirmed, like brave. You know, it's like yes, warrior,
brave lions.
Yeah, like what?
Yeah. So words matter, right? And I think we see that going all the way back to the beginning, how powerful like a name is, or a tribe is, or a last name is. It's important to God. And so I think that when, not to go too deep in theology, right? Because there's a lot more significance than even what I'm going to explain. But like, I think anytime God wants to do something new in your life, or has a promise or a covenant or a new level, or he's trusting you with a nation, right? With Abraham, or with Peter to be the first one that preached the gospel. Like, when he's trusting you with something of that significance, like, there has to be an identity shift that takes place. So you're no longer this, I'm calling you to that now. And so you're no longer Cephas, you're now Simon. You're no longer Simon, you're now Peter, right? You're no longer Sarai, you're now Sarah. You're no longer Abram, you're now Abraham. So for us, it's like we're no longer sinners, which that was the name that we're born into because of the fall of man. We're now saved by the blood of Jesus. And so our physical earthly name, like my name didn't go from Bran to Branimir, or you didn't go from to Paul,
right?
But like, you went from sinner to saved because of Christ. And so anytime that would be relative to us now, right? As opposed to the Old Testament. So I just think that anytime God has something new for you, like, there's a new identity for you to walk in. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And so for you, it's not like, well, now I'm going to change my name from Peyton to whatever, right? Whatever the next level Peyton is. No, it's like your physical earthly name could stay the same, but your identity, how you identify, has to change. So you go from unworthy to worthy, from unqualified to more than enough. You go from not enough to, you know what I'm saying? So like, you got to accept the new identity that's not in you, because the name change, the name didn't matter specifically. It's what God called them,
right,
that really mattered, right? Not the pen on the paper. I mean, that obviously was part of it, but that wasn't the full identity. And so for us, we got to understand the full identity of who we are. And for us as men of God, like, it's in Christ. That's our new name change. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Dude, I love it. I'm glad I asked the question, dude, because I think that was well put. And I think that a lot of times, people struggle with that, dude. Like, I've struggled with that. It's like, even like knowing what God says about me in the Word, right? Like, I'm chosen, I'm loved, I'm valued, I'm accepted, I'm forgiven, and thinking like, okay, I believe that, but I believe that for everybody but me.
Yeah.
Like, I believe that the Word is true, but somehow being disqualified for those things because of the way I think, what I've done, how I perceive stuff. And it's the voice in your head, right? And I think that's so easy to believe, like, okay, that makes sense. That's for everybody, but not for me. And I think for anybody on here, they just need to be reminded, like, man, no, that's 100% for you.
Yeah.
And like you said in the beginning, man, a lot of times, you're living by a lie, and that lie will affect you as if it's true. And you go to work finding validations and verdicts to support the, or you find the evidence to support the verdict. Like, I believe I'm this because it's a lie that I'm now, just saying this is who I am. And then you go to work finding evidence, right? Just like the cold coffee. Now I go to work making, different things, characters, situations, people, myself, events in my life really kind of validate the verdict I've come to. And what we're saying today is, man, today there's a new verdict that you should have. Today, the verdict you should have is that, no, I'm blessed, I'm chosen, I'm forgiven. My past doesn't equal my future. And I think that, heaven's up there. And it's got all these blessings and promises for us, right? It's got these identities for us. And it just wants us to agree with it.
Right.
Right? Like, God's like, hey, I want to release this and have heaven be impacted here on your earth in your life. But how do I continue to release the calling and identity I've given you when you walk around and you're calling yourself, shameful and depressed and this and that and that? It's like, no, he's like, I got a new identity for you. You might experience that feeling, but that's not who you are.
That's good.
And I think that heaven's just like wanting us to agree with it. Like, if you start walking around and saying, man, I'm accepted, I'm valued, I'm blessed, I'm disciplined, I'm focused, I'm motivated, I'm encouraged, I'm going after the next levels of my life, I believe I can achieve it. There's no reason why I can't. And you start saying those things, God's up to thinking like, well, shoot, they said it. What am I do now? I got to release it. And they start to release those sayings. and start to impact it.
An inheritance is not earned. It's given to you by your father. Like, you didn't have to do anything to get an inheritance passed down to you, but you do have to receive it.
Yeah.
So if the inheritance is coming your way and you're out there living like, nah, I don't have no money, I'm just a poor old me.
Yeah.
I don't have it's like, dude, you know who your dad is? You got an inheritance, bro. Go sign the paperwork. Go get your money.
Yeah.
Go get all the good things coming to you. So the truth is, like, you got an inheritance. You got a new identity. You have a purpose, but you got to receive it and stop acting like you don't. Stop living like you don't, and just step into the fullness of who you actually are.
Yeah, that's great, dude. I mean, you look at like, I wonder, did you ever have some, like, when you were growing up, like, parents or just somebody like say stuff like money doesn't grow on trees and just different things like that?
Yeah, of course.
And even those things like have to be worked out.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
sometimes because a lot of times that little voice in your head that's telling you stuff, it might be from experiences, it might be from something you heard from somebody else, things in the past. But even those little things I had to work out as I got into business, right? Like, hey, money is evil. And I was like, I just had heard those different things. And so, like, I was like subconsciously just trying to like make it but get rid of it, right? And I had to realize that no, that's not the truth. The truth is that money is a root of all evil. And if I let it be my Lord, then it is going to ruin my life. And so I think it's just important to even if you just go on Google or ChatGPT and put like, give me some scriptures and some affirmations about what God says about me, and then print those off.
Right.
Man, you read those every single morning, it's going to change everything. And then ask yourself, based off the person I intend to become, that person that I need to become to achieve these goals, right, to achieve all these accomplishments I want, what would that person do? What would that person look like? You might say that person would be disciplined. That person would be more focused. That person would be more giving. Then that should be your affirmation. I am a disciplined, focused, giving person that sows good seeds, that goes the extra mile, that loves on others, and that's hyper-focused and not distracted by the little because I'm focused on going after the big. You might put that as your affirmation, and that's something you write in this app every single day. And then as you go back, you can look at the prior days and see the affirmations and how you've been speaking to yourself. Do it just for like the next 30 days, starting today, and just see how you feel at the end of it. Don't check up in 2 days.
Right.
Don't check up in 5 days.
Don't get on the scale after the first workout.
Exactly. You said it perfect, Brand. Like, consistency beats intensity. You go like work out one time for 7.5 hours. It's the first time you worked out ever. You're like, dude, I'm gonna be shredded. No, you're gonna be dead tomorrow, and you're gonna look the same, right? But if you could just do 30 minutes a day for the next 70 days,
right,
that'll change something. And so, but just start doing it and write down 8 affirmations, just 8, right? And as this app comes out January 1st, you can start doing it in the app. But for right now, let's not delay. Like, start writing down these affirmations on a piece of paper and speaking to yourself the right way. And I promise you, in the next 30 days, as you look up what you're thinking, how you're feeling, how you perceive your day, what you're getting from your day, it's all going to change.
That's good. That's good. You said something about what the affirmations need to be. Specific? What was it? Emotional? Visual?
Yeah.
Consistent?
I think you said it.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
It sounds good. Yeah.
I don't know if I said it. You said it. Specific, tied to emotion, consistent, visual.
Yeah.
I think those 4 things will help. Dude, I'm fired up.
I am too. Hey, let's go speak the next level.
Let's go
into today. Hey, when you get off, do it now. Don't delay, don't wait, because the next thing that's coming your way will capture this moment. This moment to help you take it to the next level. Affirmations, there's power, there's life and death in the spoken word. And what are you going to produce? Are you going to give power to the false, bad identities, the lower levels? Or are you going to give power to the next level that God's got for you? So guys, we love you. Be strong, stay steadfast, and we'll talk to you next week. God bless you.